interrupt you because I know Ohio Senator Rob Portman is standing by with us right now on Capitol Hill. He was, of course, White House Budget Director under George W. Bush, also served on the Deficit Reduction Super Committee that was unable to reach a deal last year. Senator, thank you for joining us this evening. Also want to dig into your trade experience. There's a new unit, the Trade Enforcement Unit. The president talking tough on China, something Mitt Romney has done on the campaign trail. What's your reaction?
Margaret, I thought there were 4 or 5 tidbits in the speech that I agreed with. That was certainly one of them. Having better enforcement of our trade laws and international standards makes sense. We also need to be sure, though, to expand our exports. And the president, unfortunately, has not asked for the ability to negotiate trade agreements. He's the first president since FDR not to ask for that. So we can do a lot more in terms of exports, but the president needs to be bolder. He needs to actually ask for trade negotiating authority. Congress would give it to him, and then we could actually begin negotiating some of these trade agreements and knocking down barriers, helping U.S. farmers, workers, and service providers. So I would like to have seen a lot more on trade in terms of what we can do to actually create jobs.
Well, he did talk about Panama, Colombia, also South Korea in there. Would you give him credit for having achieved those things over the past year?
Yeah, I was very involved in that, as you know, negotiating those 5 years ago. It took us 5 years to get them done, 4 years because the Democrats in the House wouldn't move on them, and then 9 months for this president to move on them. So those were commercially beneficial to the United States of America. They should have been passed 4 or 5 years ago. In the meantime, we've done nothing in terms of the international trade agreements. We have no bilateral agreements going on right now. There are hundreds going on without us. The United States is on the sidelines, and we're falling behind. I got to tell you, Margaret, I was very disappointed that the speech didn't talk about the need for us to get our spending under control. It's almost like we're living in different worlds here. In Washington, maybe people are forgetting about the fact that we have an historic debt, historic deficits. We are looking at the real possibility of heading down the road of Greece and other southern European countries unless we get this under control. And the president, as I count it, had 7 new ways for us to spend more money. And with regard to any kind of spending constraints, said he'll only consider it with huge new taxes.
Very quickly, I want to ask you, the president spent a fair amount of time talking about opening up energy resources in this country. A lot of Republicans upset about the White House rejection of the Keystone Pipeline. Is this a compromise? Is this something down the middle here?
I don't know. I was delighted to hear the president say that he's interested in opening up more federal lands. I think that's what he said. He didn't talk about the Keystone XL pipeline. I'd hope that he would address that and explain why he believes it's not a good idea. Yeah, I think he also is interested in energy efficiency, which is a good thing. I have legislation with Senator Shaheen. We were sitting next to each other tonight. It's a bipartisan bill, and we thought he pretty much described our bill. And so I think there's some things we can do this year as a Congress. One certainly would be on the trade area with enforcement, and the president would ask for it to give him the ability to negotiate agreements. Another would be energy efficiency, and some of the energy you talked about in terms of fracking and hydraulic fracking will generate a lot more natural gas particularly. And then finally, I think there's an opportunity this year to do something on corporate tax reform. I was glad the president raised it. I was concerned that he wants to punish U.S. companies that dare to do business overseas, because that's exactly the wrong way to go. But I do think he's on the right track that our corporate tax rate is way too high.
All right, Senator, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your reaction. Thank you. As you can tell, that din behind him competing